it feels like to us that the best years are behind us for iron ore. The question though is that what will decline be?
What is it about Anglo American that BHP clearly likes so much?
Well, Kirsten, thanks very much for having me. I think when we look at BHP and we look at Anglo American, the bottom line is BHP and everyone in the market likes copper. We all think it's the future for electrification, and BHP looks at Anglo American as providing access to additional copper growth that they don't currently have near term in their portfolio.
How significant is BHP's play for more copper at a time when reports over the weekend indicate that China is increasing pressure on the big Australian over iron ore pricing and contract terms for future sales contracts?
Well, I think the two are mutually exclusive. If we take your first question around BHP, China and iron ore, I mean, their commercial negotiations, China is the biggest buyer of iron ore, and clearly when it comes down to renegotiating new contracts, any buyer with a large position would want more favourable terms. I think that's separate. When we then take copper, as I mentioned, everyone's now positive. We need more. It's harder to find, structurally short, and BHP is looking to fill what looks to be an earnings hole in the market for the next 5 years.
Has BHP likely made its best and final bid for Anglo, given shareholders of Anglo American and another resources giant, Teck, are due to vote in the next few weeks on a potential merger?
Yes, I mean, I think when we look at BHP, I mean, their first approach for the listeners was obviously April last year, Anzac Day. I remember it all too well. I was on holidays at the time. I think if we roll the clock forward now, obviously BHP broke down those negotiations and left back in November last year, and they've been making their own way in their own way internally and externally. If we think about why today, you raised exactly the right point. There is a merger proposed between Anglo American and Teck Resources. The shareholder vote is next month. So it's now or never if you want to get in front of Anglo American. But clearly Anglo didn't like the terms, and the two have decided to move their separate ways still.
Is it clear what BHP offered Anglo this time?
No, it's not clear. I don't think we'll really know. BHP have just said that they had initial discussions. Anglo American board and management didn't want to entertain it any further, and I suspect BHP, like last year, didn't want to get into an aggressive acquisition. They wanted to do it friendly.
BHP has put out a statement today saying it is confident in the highly compelling potential of its own organic growth story. But does the story around its interaction with Anglo American over the last year and a half actually tell a different story about its preferred strategy?
Look, I mean, I think you've got both inorganic and organic strategy. You know, BHP has enunciated very well their internal growth strategy, which revolves around Australia, Argentina and Chile, but a lot of that growth doesn't come until next decade. So Anglo American is really more about filling the short-term hole they have, and BHP's made it very clear that their copper production, due to grade decline at the world's largest mine in Chile, called Escondida, is going backwards over the next 2 years. So that is really the short-term position BHP finds itself in. So it's really the short-term next 5 years versus the 5 years, you know, the 10, 15 years beyond 2030 that we're sort of debating.
Are there other assets, other copper assets out there that BHP is likely looking at?
Oh, look, I mean, there's obviously a multitude of assets. I think the attractiveness of the Anglo portfolio was the assets they have in Chile, the near-term growth opportunities that sit within those assets. So, I mean, BHP will reassess. I mean, they will continue to push out information over the coming months about their new joint venture with Lundin Mining, which was announced earlier this year. That's in Argentina. So, look, I think it's hard to say. I mean, there's a lot of assets out there, but clearly Anglo was the one that they coveted, having come back again and now again.
I'm going to take you back to BHP's iron ore portfolio. Has the state-backed China Mineral Resources Group told steel mills to stop buying another BHP iron ore product?
That's the way we interpret it from what we've seen in the press, etc. I think at the end of the day, though, you know, China buys 70-75% of the world's seaborne iron ore. BHP produces and sells roughly almost 300 million tonnes, so about 20% of the seaborne market. It's very hard to see how China cannot buy from BHP. I think there'll be an adjustment of volumes at the end of the day, if that's the way to think about it. But my view is that this is a commercial discussion, and we will end up with a commercial outcome at the end of the day.
But right now, that's 2 BHP iron ore products which appear to have been banned. Is the dispute hitting export shipments from Australia yet?
Not that we can see. We actually watch the shipments on a daily, weekly and monthly basis. As I mentioned, Australia sells predominantly some of the lowest cost iron ore in the world. So even if one particular buyer doesn't want a tonne from BHP, there will be another buyer who buys higher cost iron ore who will be looking to replace it with a cheaper, better quality product, most likely off BHP. So the market will rebalance. It's very unlikely to see how a low-cost producer gets knocked out of the market anytime soon.
What will it mean for prices in the near term, and what are the implications from this commercial discussion for the federal budget?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to take it up to a slightly different level when we think about iron ore. The market's biggest concern is that for the last 20 years, China's been growing very strongly. The rest of the world has struggled to keep up, and iron ore prices have been much, much higher than myself and the industry has expected. But today now, China is bringing on a new mine in Africa that will add 8% supply to a market that now is not growing. So eventually it feels like to us that the best years are behind us for iron ore. The question though is that what will the decline be? I mean, everyone has it declining by $20 a tonne or 20% over the next 3 years. We believe here at Barrenjoey that decline won't be as sharp as some people think. But ultimately, I guess the bottom line for the Australian budget is that our tax revenue royalties from iron ore are probably have peaked and at risk of going down, because there's no volume growth, but potential for a price decline.
Glenn Lawcock, thank you.
Thanks very much for having me.